a skeleton, how would you tell people that? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on this.
All right, hello everybody. Welcome to Kent with Bent 107, the one that actually happened. Yeah, I know it's a little confusing. So basically, we weren't sure if I was going to be able to do a Kent with Bent because somebody got selected for jury duty.
I know.
Yeah, so
But
basically,
then they rescheduled, so
yeah. So
now
there
I'm
was
here.
the question like, okay, can we actually do it? And if we didn't, if Bent had to be somewhere else, I had an alternate thumbnail and title and subject ready to go. But since that didn't happen, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Let's go.
as a result, we're here. Bent, what are you drinking?
Tea, and then I'm drinking water with a little bit of caffeine in it.
Well, I'm about to
Don't
crack
tell
open
anyone.
a Bud Light, which is something. This is a kind of beer I have never bought before, as far as I know. Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about this because I do not like Bud Light. In fact, this is a bit of a sacrifice here. So this is not a political channel. I don't know if you know. But the reason I'm doing this is only considered political, I think, by horrible people. The rest of people are like, no, that's not really political. That's just, being a decent person. So here's the thing. In the latest event of, like, transphobic hysteria, the fact that Anheuser-Busch hired Dylan Mulvaney, a trans woman, to do an ad for Bud Light has made everyone go absolutely insane. Not everyone, just the transphobes. And here's the thing, right? When you do things like defend people who say we should remove transgenderism from the world and say, well, that doesn't mean you want to remove the transgender people. It's like, oh, well, how are you going to do the former without doing the latter? No answers. Or when you get people who are like, I'm going to boycott Anheuser-Busch by buying some of their beer to shoot up with my gun or pour down the drain, which, spoiler alert, that's not how a boycott works. Basically, the only thing I can I come to the conclusion that there's a little bit of hypocrisy going on. And I'm going to explain what I mean. And we are going to get into the Kent with Bent, but I want to explain this a little bit. But first, Royland Hutchins says, Mothra, Kent, get bent, and AIG is a bag of dicks. And we're going to take a drink, and I just realized I don't actually have the program that I used to count drinks open. So let me fix that, and I will keep track that we have one drink so far.
All right.
Yeah, so... yeah, there's the program. Sorry about that, I forgot. I have a little death counter thing that's actually like designed for counting up deaths in Dark Souls, which is what I first used it for. But it turns out that it can count numbers for anything, because I just press a button and it increments a number.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really, really easy. So let me just set it up to make sure that it's using the right text file. So here's what I mean, right? When you ask people who are not very accepting of trans people, usually they say things like, I'm just tired of this whole thing being shoved in my face. And you know what? If there are a bunch of trans people invading your home to tell you how trans they are, okay, yeah, that would be weird and inappropriate, and I would be against that. However, when you're upset at all seeing any of them featured in a public space, it doesn't mean you don't want them being shoved in your face. It means that what you want is for them to not have any public presence at all. You want them to be living at home at best. This is assuming you don't want to get rid of them. You want them trapped in their houses, leaving lives as shut-ins, never able to go out and have a normal life. That's not an okay position to have. We saw the same thing in the 90s when basically there were a whole bunch of homophobes saying, well, I don't mind if you're gay, but I don't want to be reminded of it. What you mean is you didn't want to see two men or two women out on a date or exchanging physical displays of affection anywhere. You wanted them to just pretend that's not what they were. Not that you didn't want it shoved in your face. It's you wanted to exclude them from public life completely. And that's not okay. Now, I do recognize that we just got 5 gift memberships. I'm not on Twitch. This is YouTube. Trying to get that straight. So, Too Young to Feel This Old gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur gift memberships. Ember, James Duncan, Alex Markle, Shazammy Whammy, and Landon Knoll were all gifted. So let's take some drinks. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There we go. 5 drinks of Bud Light that tastes mostly like nothing. I am not endorsing this as a beverage, by the way. It's actually not a very good beverage in my personal opinion. Julian Wren says, using my first ever milestone chat to support trans people and say that trans rights are humans' rights. Thank you. So, yeah. Now, the reason I say this is not something I consider political is because I don't think the basic ability of people to exist in public while basically minding their own business, or to just get a job on TV or in an ad, is something that should be political. I don't think it is political. I think that's just basically, hey, that's the bare minimum of human decency.
Yeah, it's about human rights.
Yeah.
And that's
so as a result,
politics.
I decided to buy some Bud Light just to have an excuse to talk about this. And also, I put out on Twitter, if this is the kind of temper tantrum that transphobes like throw every time any trans person is in an ad ever, I think we should make trans people mandatory in all ads for the next 2 years. Because you know what? I want to see more of Kid Rock becoming absolutely enraged and shooting up his own beer because a trans person appeared within his field of view. Fuck that guy. There's our 1 F-bomb. Okay.
All right.
Now that I've talked enough about that, because my goodness, I got a little heated about it earlier today. I was like, what the hell? Okay. So, we're actually here for Kent with Bent, which is not normally about me talking about why I'm drinking beer that I don't like. Because first, I usually drink beer I do like. But second, it's mostly about dunking on Kent Hovind, who is a horrible person for both that reason and also many, many more reasons.
Yeah.
So,
very bad.
The way this works is we actually have a drinking game. You've already seen a couple drink triggers. Actually, you've seen like 3 of them, really. So, there's a drinking game. Now, here's the thing. If you don't want to drink alcohol with us, you can play along with water. You can play along with vape pen. You can play along with nothing. You can just, acknowledge the drinks as they come. But also, you do play along with any kind of intoxicating recreational substance. Please be careful and know your limits. Do not go overboard. If you feel like you're having too much, maybe back off. Modulate how much you're taking for each drink. And most importantly, the Dapper Dinosaur channel, as well as Bent Hovind, we do not accept any responsibility or liability for any death, dismemberment, injury, maiming, or destruction of property to yourself or others that may occur because you overindulged during Kent with Bent. That's on you. You know your limits. Be safe. With that being said, we'll take a drink. Whenever Kent Hovind basically says something so stupid that I just have to take a drink in order to kind of cool off my brain. This is basically brain coolant right now. We'll also take a drink anytime Kent gets something that's factually accurate, that's actually true, but he's not just quoting someone. It actually has to come out of his brain. By the end, if we haven't gotten one, I usually get very generous. And if he says something as simple as like, now this sign says, I'm like, well, good job, Kent. It does say that. I'll take a drink.
I guess that came out of his brain.
Right. Let's see. If Kent Hovind mentions the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or various leaders or prominent members of that political movement, or mentions various significant activities that they were engaged in, especially in the mid-20th century, take a drink for that. We'll also take a drink anytime Kent Hovind tells a story that didn't happen. For instance, if he confuses the argument that he had with his shampoo bottle for an argument that he had with a hypothetical Berkeley professor on an airplane, we'll take a drink for that. We'll also take a drink for any joke that doesn't land. Also, if one of us can predict successfully what Kent Hovind's next argument is going to be, where it's not very clear, and we get it right, take a drink. Harry Rosser for $5 says, is it transphobia if the person genuinely cannot count to 3? Which person? I'm going to go ahead and say the inability of any person to count to 3 is not on its own transphobia. I think I can say that fairly safely. Now, you might find a trans person who can't count to 3. That could be. Or you might find a transphobe who can't. Or you might find a cis person who's not a transphobe who can't. But, like, the being trans or the transphobia is independent of that counting to 3. Okay. I think that works. Anyway. Now, we also have a new drink trigger. This is called Trojan Source. It doesn't come up much for Kent because he doesn't like to cite very many sources, and the ones he does like to cite tend to be, call this guy, which no, I'm not going to do. However, if Kent Hovind cites a source, and it, rather than backing him up, actually contradicts him, we call that a Trojan source, and we drink. Let's see. Now, there's some that you guys can trigger. If anyone sends any milestone chat or super chat, and it contains one of the kaiju emojis, which include Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, take a drink for that. Also, if you super chat or milestone chat anything to the effect that AIG is a bag of dicks, we'll take a drink for that. That one's a little tricky because you can't just say that outright. You have to be clever with it. You have to go into a different language or use puns or whatever. We'll also take a drink for every gifted membership. You already saw that. We had 5 gifted memberships and we took 5 drinks for that. We will also take a drink anytime that you can audibly hear Mothra or Godzilla come in, which happens kind of randomly. It's a phone notification. There's a couple of kind of phone notifications I have set to make those sounds. If they happen, we take a drink. Mostly because, I don't know, I want some randomness in this game. Mm-hmm. Bent, have I forgot any rules?
Mm-mm. You got them all.
Look at that, all off the top of my head. That's what I'm here for. It's because I have an okayish memory.
That's pretty good.
That is a lot of what I do, basically, is just, hey, I didn't forget this thing that I read. So, all right. Kent Hovind is talking about the decline in the human lifespan after the flood of Noah, which, I mean, it's a pretty big assumption that that's actually a real thing that happened. But hey, that's his whole shtick, is that really totally happened, and the Bible is absolutely, literally historically true, except where it's not, because even he can't swallow it. Like the flat earth, solid domey parts. Not a big fan of those parts.
Firmament parts, the floodgates of heaven.
Yeah, he doesn't like that so much. Even the pillars of the earth, he's not a huge fan of. Yeah. All right, here we go.
Lifespan dropped off to 400 years for a few generations. Then it dropped off to 200.
Oh.
Now, there's probably a couple of reasons why it dropped off again in the days of Peleg. We get into that.
Peleg? It's Peleg, but okay. Chipfish, member for 12 months, it says, trans rights with a Godzilla. Well, thank you very much. And yes. Next time I do a trans rights thing, I need to find something that tastes better. Okay.
Keep your eye out for new ads.
Right? Yeah, like, a beer I like needs to have a trans woman as a spokesperson. Where's, like, the shop top? Yeah, something like that. Pelagic Tuna Kid, welcome to Tetrapod. Oh, man, the worst name, but thank you very much for your generosity. Steve Reno for $2. I was about to say euros, but that's the dollar sign. I know my monies. Says, Pelagic Tuna Kids are Dapper's favorite kaiju. Ghidorah. We'll take a drink for it. Actually, I think, like, the little, like, larval form of Hedorah from Godzilla vs. Hedorah or Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster, whichever title you're watching it under, do actually look a whole lot like tunicate larvae. So I guess there's something to that.
I've never watched.
Yeah, it's it's definitely the trippiest one, right? Because it has this big environmental message and it's full of like 70s stoner music and like weird kaleidoscope interludes with dancing and like also cartoon interludes for some reason. It is by far the weirdest of the Showa era Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
It is a bizarre movie. Okay, here we go.
The days of Peleg, we'll get into that later on video number 6, so seminar part 6. It'll probably be 4 years till we get there in our class at the rate we're going.
Hey, that's more content for me.
But why did it drop off again? But then, after a couple generations of 200 years old, you come to a fellow named, to Abraham's father, actually, Terah, who lived to be 205.
Goof 23 for $2 says Godzilla versus heterosexual. Look, Godzilla does not discriminate in his destruction based on gender identity or sexual orientation. Godzilla is truly an equal opportunity natural disaster. Savage Cobra Kinda Official says, are pelagic tunicates the same kind as sessile tunicates? I don't know. You probably have to ask Ken Ham. I don't think he's thought about it. I don't think anyone at Answers in Genesis knows what a tunicate is. If I'm being entirely honest. I mean, to be fair, not many people really do. Like, if I said, hey, what's a salp or a sea squirt or a tunicate? I feel like most people are like, I don't know.
It's an animal in the water.
I don't even think most people get that far. But they are pretty cool overall, except the pelagic ones. Those are horrible monstrosities.
Then it dropped below 200. Abraham was 175. And when you read that, that sounds really old.
Yeah.
But if you look at his ancestors, that's nothing. Just about everybody's living longer than that. So it keeps dropping and dropping and dropping.
Jake Nelson says Godzilla, and we're taking a drink for that because YouTube still has not quite figured out all of the getting people their, what do you call them? Emojis. We'll take a drink. It says, drinking Ruchladich, I think, tonight. Easy on the drink triggers. I'm assuming that that right there is a scotch. Because that looks like a Celtic word.
Because it's an adage.
Yeah. Well, that too. Well, take small sips, my recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
It got down to probably 70 or 80 years average lifespan for quite a while. There were people in Bible times that lived to be over 100. There were people in Bible times that were 6'6".
Okay.
You know, Abe Lincoln was 6'6".
I really want him to get to a point about this. Like, what are the reasons that he thinks that lifetime, or lifespans, I should say, declined?
But the average
Maybe
height
his
of
point
the...
was that Abe Lincoln was 6'6". That's his final
That's
point.
the real point, yeah. You know, Abraham
Now he's on
Lincoln
this
was
coming
really tall. Okay.
I'm writing it down for the quiz next week.
Okay.
people
How tall
during,
was
100
Abraham
years ago
Lincoln?
was shorter. There were still people that were 8 feet tall, you know. So things are dropping off. During the Dark Ages, it really dropped off when we had, you know, knowledge suppressed by the Catholic Church, you know.
Oh, goodness. Okay, we're taking a drink here. Oh. Okay, so first, why are the Dark Ages, or they're not really called the Dark Ages anymore by historians because of the problems that has caused. Why were they called the Dark Ages? Well,
oh, sorry, I thought you were asking me. Go
no,
on.
go ahead if you have an idea.
No, go ahead and answer.
Okay, so the big reason is because record keeping declined after the collapse of the Roman Empire. That's basically it. That's literally it. Now,
They didn't have much written down.
they didn't have a whole lot that was written down, yeah. Now, was there a decline in learning? Well, in terms of literature, there was. But why was this? Well, again, it was the fall of the Western Roman Empire, and so a lot of the infrastructure that was already being used to do things like copy books, trade books, move books from one place to another, all that infrastructure had basically collapsed. So you were stuck with the books that you had on hand, and of course, books don't have a 100% survival rate. If you have the last copy of some book in your region, and it's in your monastery library, and that catches on fire, which given that you're reading by firelight, whether it be candles or oil lamps, you know, it's the kind of thing that might happen. Your book might catch on fire, the whole building might catch on fire. That's it. No one can go, you can't just hop over to the next country over and try to get that book. That's going to be a big hassle, especially in the absence of the Roman infrastructure, as well as the fact that there's no Roman legions still patrolling the roads to keep them safe. Not that they were all that safe even then. But yeah. Now, was the Catholic Church suppressing knowledge? Well, by the late medieval period and into the early modern period, they did in fact have a censor who was basically giving permission for publishers to publish new books. But that right there is not the same as they were suppressing all the previous quote-unquote pagan knowledge. For one thing, much of ancient Greek philosophy was still being read. Aristotle was still a really big deal. Parts of Plato were still a really big deal. And also interaction with the, later on in the medieval period, with the Muslim world that had conquered the Byzantine Empire, or was conquering the Byzantine Empire, didn't ultimately fall until well into that. But that was then spreading through Arabic translation, mostly done by Jews, by the way, of ancient Greek texts into Arabic, which were then making their way across North Africa into Iberia, and then from that point in cases into the rest of Europe. I mean, that was also happening, and that was restoring works that had been lost, not because of active suppression by the Catholic Church, but just because of the natural decay of, well, libraries, especially, again, without a unifying infrastructure and empire that's holding the whole place together. This whole idea that the Catholic Church was the one thing that held humanity back for nearly 2,000 years in Europe is, one, extremely Eurocentric. Because, like I said, I don't know if you know, but all across places like North Africa and, Western Asia, Muslims and Jewish scholars were doing a bang-up job with all sorts of knowledge. Also, it's an invention of anti-Catholic early Protestant nonsense, basically. Basically, the Catholic or the Protestants decided, hey, Pope is bad. And then they just made up a whole bunch of bad stuff about the Catholic Church, which is ironic since there's enough bad stuff about the Catholic Church, you really don't need to make anything up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hey. And then it was, of course, later picked up by atheists who also tend not to like the Catholic Church. And who will, not as a group, but I know of many atheists who will basically believe anything that makes any Christian group look bad on the grounds that it makes the group look bad. So, the Catholic Church did not suppress all the knowledge through the Dark Ages, which is why we call it the Dark Ages. Yeah, as Vishanti points out, hashtag Maimonides. Yeah, Maimonides is possibly one of the most famous scholars of the entire medieval period, or the Dark Ages. I mean, there's still a statue to him in Spain, despite the fact that Spain decided to kick out all the Jews. They were like, yeah, but Maimonides was cool enough to keep a statue of him. Oh, thanks, Spain. Anyway, if I find my mouse cursor, I'm going to hit play again.
And so there's about a 1,000-year span in here where information is suppressed in order to keep people dumb and keep people enslaved to, the church dogma.
Taking another drink. Okay, we're going to talk about how much power Rome actually had over Christian dogma during the Middle Ages, because now that's coming up. Rome had to repeatedly send out the exact same message to local churches throughout Europe multiple times. In some cases, like every few decades, they basically send out the same instructions, like, hey, priests aren't supposed to be living with women as their wives. You're supposed to be both celibate and chaste. Didn't take. The village priest almost always lived with a woman as a wife for basically the entire Middle Ages. More than once, in some cases more than once per pope, Pope had to say, hey, those Jews, you're actually not allowed to just kill them and take their stuff, or just take their stuff without killing them, or just kick them out of their homes. Like, you're not actually allowed to do that. That's not okay. Didn't matter. No one cared. Well, I mean, except the Jews, I guess, but they weren't the ones who were doing the thing that was bad. So, yeah, people just kept doing it anyway. It was basically impossible for the Pope to extend much power for most of the medieval period. Popes had to fight for the right to be the ones who decided who would be the next bishop in an area. Because kings like to be the one who would decide that. Because they like to be in charge of both the temporal and the religious authority in their areas. Because, I mean, why wouldn't they? Basically, if you look at the history of the Roman Catholic Church in Europe, it's basically a long history of the Pope trying to assert the authority he claimed and just continually failing. The Church did not have the kind of complete dominance of the world, of the European world, that Kent and many other people would like to imagine that it does. It just didn't. Yeah. Now, granted, maybe if you're in the Papal States or surrounding states that might be invaded by the Papal States, then sure. Vishanti asked, did they have to fight for their right to party? Only sometimes. But, yeah.
Then in the last 500 years, we've seen an improvement in a lot of medical fields and things like that, diets and sanitation. A lot.
Oh, yeah, and the Embiid points out that, yeah, also there were multiple popes at a single time in very many cases. Yeah, it happened a few times. There were popes and anti-popes, and you know who gets to be who gets called an anti-pope is just the one who loses that conflict. There's nothing particularly different about them. They just politically didn't do as well as the one who is now in the list of real popes.
Sanitary laws, I think. And we've got a videotape called The Bible and Health that'll give you a ton of information on, you know, God's plan for what the Scripture says about health.
Oh, good. Like,
Information.
sacrifice a dove and spread his blood on you to get rid of leprosy.
Go swim in a muddy, disease-infested lake,
Yeah, that'll
and
help.
your leprosy will go away. But you have to do it 7 times.
7 times, okay. Carrie Bronson for $5 says, by technical definition, covering up that scandal does count as suppressing knowledge. The video was before the scandal broke, though, right? So I actually don't know if the video was before the abuse scandal with Catholic priests became really big, and the Catholic Church had to pay a bunch of money and whatnot, and like people like Cardinal Law got like forced retired to seclusion and whatnot. And yeah, I guess that does count as suppressing knowledge, although I do think, to be fair, that Kent is talking about like academic knowledge, not like knowledge of particular crimes of individuals. So yeah, yes.
Sanitary laws, dietary laws, etc., etc. Okay, so the same thing that happened to the people, their lifespans are being shortened after the flood.
You know, one thing that's interesting about the dietary laws is the Bible says, hey, totally cool to eat crickets and grasshoppers. I wonder why Kent doesn't do that, because as far as I know, he doesn't.
Chocolate-covered crickets.
I might eat a chocolate. I've had a chocolate-covered ant, but like, ants are nothing. They barely exist.
Tiny.
That's also happening to the animals. Reptiles that lived before the flood and got to be 80 feet long now simply can't live as long.
Oh yeah, the fearmonger official. I forgot how the Bible might have said something about eating seeds, which Kent, of course, means consuming cyanide. Yeah, on the basis that Genesis says that the fruit and seeds are for human consumption. He's like, oh, you should totally eat apricot seeds, which are full of laetrile, which metabolizes directly into hydrogen cyanide in your body. So technically, you're not eating cyanide, but it's like, okay, but you're still getting a huge dose of cyanide when you do that. Yes, you are. Here's the thing. When the Bible says the fruit and the seeds, when it says the seeds, it's probably talking about grains. I don't know if you know, but when you have wheat berries or rice grains or corn kernels, those are seeds. You turn them into things, right? Like you might boil them till the point where they're soft, and then you can eat, you know, porridge of them. I've had boiled wheat berries. The only thing I don't like about it is how long it takes, because my goodness, a raw wheat berry, if you just boil it without putting it in a pressure cooker, it's like a 4 to 6 hour project to get that thing soft enough to eat. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But like, you can do that. You can grind them into flours to make different various kinds of breads. Right? Rice flour is a thing, wheat flour is a thing. But this also goes for things like oats and sorghum, right? All these grains, they're the seeds. What the Bible is probably talking about there, now I'm not a biblical scholar, so take this with a grain of salt, but what I think the Bible is probably talking about there is just eat fruit and grain. I don't think it's telling you to go crack open the hard shell of an apricot pit and eat the poisonous seed that you find inside.
There's a lot of seeds that are not poisonous that you could eat instead. Maybe choose those.
True. Also, Vishanti says coffee beans are seeds, therefore coffee is a commandment. That's right,
Yeah,
Vishanti. Every time you drink a cup of coffee, that basically counts as fulfilling a mitzvah. By the way, also, I am not a rabbi. Do not take my word on which things count as fulfilling mitzvot.
And therefore they can't grow as big. And therefore some of them even might die before they reach maturity to have kids of their own. And so the whole species goes extinct. You mentioned about the panthers and stuff probably going to go extinct, you know, or the cougars, or even the cheetahs. There just aren't enough of them.
Yeah, that's probably true for cheetahs. You know, and Kent's right about the cheetahs, so we're going to take a drink. I'm going to talk a little bit about cheetah diversity and why it's sad. Here's a drink. So the thing with cheetahs is that basically they went through a gigantic population bottleneck, and we're not sure why. But nowadays, any two cheetahs are as genetically similar to each other as basically human siblings are, like full siblings. Which is really, 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 really low genetic diversity. In fact, cheetahs are so similar to each other genetically that any one cheetah will accept without any immune response or rejection a skin graft from any other cheetah. Which, if you know anything about like transplants and skin grafts, that's absurd.
Graft versus the host disease is no joke.
It is, yeah. I mean, it is also a joke if you're watching Arrested Development, but it is also not a joke in real life.
I suppose.
Yeah. So, like, ouch. That is not a good time for cheetahs. Now, that is actually causing problems with attempts to keep cheetahs as a healthy species, right? Because every single cheetah that dies is a huge blow to genetic diversity unless it has been reproducing a whole bunch. And yeah, it is possible that cheetahs might just be not long for this world, despite human efforts to the contrary. So, yeah, pretty sad with the cheetahs. Of course, this population bottleneck was not nearly as severe as what I would like to say is 8, but actually comes down to 5, and I'll tell you why it's 5. Genetically, Noah's sons have some big things in common, in that they all carry only a subset of Noah and his wife's DNA, which means the sources for genetic diversity for humanity is not Noah, his wife, their 3 sons, and those sons' wives. It is just Noah, his wife, and his sons' wives, because all the genetic diversity in his sons are already taken up in Noah and his wife. And in fact, together, they probably have less genetic diversity than just Noah and his wife, because chances are there were some parts, like if you have a couple and they have 3 kids, chances are some parts of each couple's genomes didn't make it into any of the 3 kids. So yeah, at best 5. Cheetahs were in the like maybe single digits of thousands, you know, like a few thousand left, and this is where they are now.
Okay.
Humans, according to the Noah's Ark story, went down to 5. And of course, according to other things, like all of the cats, if you think that there's a cat kind, which according to Kent is just Felidae, that would be every single feline is descended from 2. So yeah, this whole genetic bottleneck thing is a much bigger problem for creationism than Ken Hovind would have you believe. The Average Cobra Kind of Official says, for $5, the bottleneck was a problem for cheetahs, but all life bounced back from a population of 2 or 14. Yeah, of course. Although sometimes I also hear 2 or 7. I actually heard an interesting one, which was that the 7, the clean animals, and I don't know where this person got this. I think it was Grady McMurtry who said it. It was like, oh, so you take 7... You take 3 females and 4 males, and you sacrifice 1 male when you get off the ark. I was like, oh, okay. I don't know where it says that in the text, but sure, I guess.
You know, the gene pool is too limited, and the panda bear is probably going to go extinct.
Also,
it's just it's probably a genetic deformity or a mutation from the original bear, and they're pretty and they're cute, but they're just not going to make it.
I mean, panda bears are indeed descended from the original common ancestor of all bears. I guess I'll take that right, although take that as a thing that he's getting right, but calling it a genetic deformity is a weird way to put it.
It's not a deformity. It's just how they evolve.
Yeah. I don't... Oh, hey! Borg Emporius Snapping Turtle says, hi. Well, hello, Snapping Turtle. I hope that you are doing well, my Archosauromorph friend, because turtles are probably Archosauromorphs.
Okay. If you left the Chihuahuas in the world all alone, leave them all alone, put them out in the woods, they wouldn't make it.
I'm actually not that sure about that.
And they would just run back home.
Well, maybe. But like, if we say like there's a human extinction scenario, right? So there's no home really to run back to. The reason I say I'm not so sure about that is that feral dogs actually acclimatize to the wild without too much problem. And while Chihuahuas are very small, I mean, there are small canids now. Foxes are small. And ultimately, unlike some other breeds like American bulldogs, they don't have like severe physical problems normally. I mean, some of them have problems with eye bulging, but not all of them do. So I actually think that if you had a diverse population of Chihuahuas, that one, the ones with severe health problems would die off first, sure, but that's natural selection. And I actually think you probably could get not too like a population of feral chihuahuas that wouldn't do too badly. But what do I know? I'm not a dog expert.
You're not a chihuahuaist?
Yeah, I'm not a chihuahuologist. But yeah, historically, feral dogs do quite well. Of course, they do really well in human cities, but even other places, right? Like, dingoes are just feral dogs that do quite well. Now, granted, they're medium-sized dogs, not small dogs, but still, I don't see any particular reasons why chihuahuas would have to do poorly. And Kent is always fond of saying, like, oh, something would eat them. Yeah, some things eat foxes, too.
Yeah, you put Kent in the woods and something would eat him.
Right. The fact that something would prey upon a population does not mean that the population would go extinct. Most populations have problems with predators. That doesn't mean that they automatically just go extinct. Oh, yeah. This is kind of a terrifying screenshot. Look, most of the freeze frames with Kent from this, with the weird lighting and like the VHS post-process sharpening and whatnot, just make him look like a horrible monster. I think that
is accurate.
Well, yeah.
It's a useless dog, in my opinion. Okay.
I just hate how much Kent Hovind hates chihuahuas for no reason. I'm taking a drink because it hurts my brain.
Yeah. Not okay.
Also, there's some evidence that they were actually bred to be portable heat pads. So that if you had like an injury or something and you needed to have keep something warm, put a chihuahua on it. They're warm. I'm not kidding. There's actually some reason to think. Yeah. And I mean, hey, they don't take up a whole lot of food because they're so tiny.
That is true. They eat so little.
They really do. I watch how much you feed your dog and I'm like, it's like nothing. And then she's like, oh, but she might be overweight this week. Oh, okay.
She might be. She's fine.
So here we have a time after the flood when lifespans are dropping off, and so people are killing the dinosaurs. In addition to them dying from the climate, they've also got people going against them.
Wait, this is all about dinosaurs? I forgot what we were talking about, I'll be honest.
I think they killed them for
said the reptiles were like 80 feet long before the flood, but now they're shorter, and now people are killing them because people weren't killing them before the flood.
Oh, that's...
Because they were too big.
That's dumb. It's
really pretty dumb. Stupid, but...
I'm going to take another drink for that. That's
the train of thought.
I'm glad you followed it, because I couldn't.
Yeah, I was able to.
Several reasons. They killed them for meat. There would be a lot of hamburger in one brachiosaurus. They killed them because they were a menace. You know, nobody wants to live next door to a dinosaur.
Why not? I mean, look, lots of dinosaurs probably would have been fairly menacing, but also many of them wouldn't be. Like, oh no, there's a Heterodontosaurus nearby. It's like 2 feet tall and eating the plants. Okay, is that really much more dangerous than like a bighorn sheep?
No.
I don't think so. Like, who cares? Or, oh, hey, look, there's a sparrow. Because let's not forget, birds are dinosaurs just as much as any Tyrannosaurus Rex is. Yeah, I think Kent is just relying on the idea that everyone thinks of dinosaurs as the giant, more charismatic animals like Triceratops or T-Rex. And it's like, okay, but what about, like, you know, a little Compsognathus? What's that going to do? The answer's like, nothing. It might eat your chickens. It's not going to be a menace to you. It's not going to be an existential threat to you as a human. And yeah, Soulcat says, people live next to me, right? Yeah, they don't complain. At least not that I've heard.
I've not heard them complain. I like having a dinosaur as a roommate.
Yeah, see?
They killed him to be a hero. I saved the village, you know, I slew the dragon. They killed him to prove his superiority, or competition for land, or medicinal purposes. All kinds of ancient recipes call for dragon bones, or dragon saliva, or dragon fat. I mean, here you're reading this, what would appear to be a normal recipe. You know, you mix this and this and this, and, you know, a little bit of dragon fat. And it's not like they're trying to exaggerate. It's just like, hey, it's just normal. You're supposed to put that in there. You know, everybody does. You know, don't you know? Kind of stuff. So, especially if somebody gets the idea that, you know, if you...
Smitty, yes, I did hear that Compsognathus might be the juvenile of a larger predator. Until that's more well confirmed, though, I am still going to continue to think of it as an adult small theropod. And maybe that's wrong. And look, if it is, then great. I'll get to learn something. Also, do hit like. I'm showing like 41 people haven't hit like, and it's It's weighing heavily upon my soul.
If you mix dragon bones in your soup, it'll do something special for you, you know. Then people are going to go out and hunt the dragons just to...
So, actually, in traditional Chinese medicine, so there's a few things here. This is what Kent is talking about, is traditional Chinese medicine. It's not really much of a thing. So, there are traditional Chinese medicinal practices, right? But the way that people think of it now as a system of medicine that's been somewhat codified is actually an outgrowth of Mao's Cultural Revolution, in which he wanted to get away from what he saw as capitalist-inspired medicine. Kind of like, remember that time that the Soviet Union wanted to get rid of capitalist-inspired evolution and go to Lysenkoism, which caused all sorts of problems? Well, Mao wanted to reach back into the history of China and pull up a different medical system. In part because drugs are expensive and hard to make, and his country couldn't really do that because he'd already ruined the economy for the most part. Not that it started out all that great in the first place. Whoops. So anyway, he pulled together a whole bunch of different medicinal traditions, including things like acupuncture and various herbal remedies, and putting together different things, including things that called for dragon bones. And this was all put together into a systemic, well, a semi-systemic thing in China, which is still existing to this day. It's a bunch of just medical nonsense. It's complete pseudoscience. None of it works. Acupuncture is at best as good as an okay massage, and it's far more dangerous in that you don't always know how well sterilized those needles are. So, yeah.
Hopefully sterile, but...
Yeah, they're supposed to be, but they're not always. So anyway, but in those parts of Chinese medicine where you actually do call for dragon bones, traditionally what's been used is actually dinosaur fossils, which according to Kent would be flood-related things. But ultimately, you're just grinding up a rock. So, yeah. Yeah, there you go. Jake Nelson for $10 says, but God magicked humans, though. Also, AIG is a sack of schlongs. And yes, they are. I'll take a drink for that. Okay, here we go.
Kill them for their body parts, just like the rhinoceros. You know, the poor rhinoceros has this, you know, like a fingernail.
I think Trippy Liquids just made a successful prediction what we're drinking for, because Trippy Liquids just said rhino horn, wink, wink.
There you go.
Well done. Which means it is time for me to crack open another Bud Light.
Oh, delicious.
Yeah.
Bud Light.
Hey, better beer companies than Anheuser-Busch. Go piss off all the transphobes. Go do it.
Just do it.
A horn on his nose that's made of the same material, keratin. Some guys in some of these countries get the dumb idea that, you know, if you make a knife and the handle is made out of a rhinoceros horn, you will be invincible. Nobody will be able to beat you in battle.
I've never heard of this. If anyone has, let me know. I think this is a thing that he's just making up, or he's confusing the, well, pseudo-medical use of rhino horn with this.
Well, of course, we know that's not true, but it is kind of hard on the rhinoceros.
Yep.
And so that's probably what happened to the dragons. People were killing them off for all sorts of reasons. The Bible mentions
there were
dragons.
No dragons, Kent.
There
no
really
dragons.
weren't. Yeah.
There's no fire-breathing animal that just walked around and flew around.
Nor is there any evidence of any humans anywhere ever having interacted with non-avian dinosaurs.
Quite a few times.
True.
35 times, actually, dragons are mentioned in the Bible. That'd be a good quiz question. How many times are dragons
Write it down!
mentioned in the Bible?
So here's the other thing. Dragons really aren't mentioned in the Bible outside of the KJV, because the terms used to... and this also counts for, like, unicorn, because the terms used to translate that actually turn out not to work so well. So, for instance, some of the things that have been called dragons historically are probably mostly just things like really big lizards and crocodiles and really big snakes. So, yeah. The fact that the King James Version, which is barely its own version anyway, it is in fact a very minor revision of the Bishop's Bible, make it a bit more pro-monarchy. Use that as a translation for a few words in Greek and Hebrew doesn't really mean a whole lot in terms of what the Bible's actually saying exists in terms of animals. So, yeah. This is actually an area where the Bible is better than what Kent Hovind would like you to think it is, in terms of like plausibility of its narrative.
You have to understand, the King James Version would not mention dinosaurs. Who can tell me why the King James Version would not mention dinosaurs?
The word hadn't been invented yet.
The name dinosaur hadn't been invented yet.
Yep.
King James Version translated in 1611, the word dinosaur made up in 1841.
Well, revised in 1610, published in 1611, based on the Bishop's Bible, which was, when was the Bishop's Bible translated?
10 years earlier?
1568, a lot more than 10 years earlier.
More than 10 years earlier.
Well, one thing is actually, the archaic language in the King James Version was already archaic in 1611. People already read it, and it had a sort of an old-fashioned sound. Not like a lot. Like, you know, if someone spoke to you today the way that people wrote and spoke in, like, 1910, you'd be like, it's a little off, but it's fine.
Boomer.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway.
Obviously, they're not going to use a word that hasn't been invented yet.
True.
So they use the word.
Take a drink for being true. And yeah, the thing is, though, the modern translations that also aren't using the word dinosaur aren't using it because the Bible doesn't talk about them besides birds. Alright, Pelagic Tunicate for €5 says, I drank Bud Light once, tasted like watered down beer. And it is. Watering down in beer is it's an AIG move. Also, tunicates are the best. Look, tunicates are great. It's their free swimming version that I'm like, I don't know about that. That doesn't seem okay to me.
I know about it. It's great.
Look, tunicates should be sessile creatures that attach themselves to rocks or docks or whatever and go siphon water in and expel it out and then collect little particulates in their basket. They then digest and then they continue on being happy, sessile, two-direction circulatory system animals that eat their own brain. Another thing they do is they eat their own brain. Well, most of it.
Or dragons, which was used all
you gotta do what you gotta do, right?
through history. They're
think
called
Kent ate his own
dragons,
brain.
and there are many
Kent has secretly been a tunicate this whole time.
No wonder you don't like them.
books written about this, and literally thousands of legends of people talking about seeing dragons or killing dragons.
Yeah, legends, not legends and real things aren't the same thing.
No skeleton of a dinosaur looks like that drawing.
No, it does not. No skeleton of anything looks like that. With a ridiculously long serpentine neck and like those legs all the way up the top. Like, goodness. I'm just gonna take a drink for like, this is totally a dinosaur. That's what dinosaurs look like. No. Sorry, Dr. Shuker, if that's even your claim, which I don't know that it is.
Dragons or somebody being killed by a dragon. The word dinosaur made up in 1841 by Richard Owen. Up until that time, they're known as dragons. Now, after the flood, you got 8 people.
I mean, says him.
It's on the screen. It must be true.
Everybody, spreads out around the world in the next few hundred years. They have kids and grandkids and great-grandkids, and pretty soon you start to get a good-sized population. And they're spreading out, taking over new territory, civilizing the world. However, whatever you think of that, that's what they did. As they spread out, the population begins to grow. Big, ferocious animals are going to be killed off.
Okay, but what about the small, non-ferocious dinosaurs, Kent? What about them? No explanation. Just all dinosaurs were giant, carnivorous monsters, apparently.
It is what he believes. He thinks they grow forever.
Yeah, that's true.
Even the little ones. Somehow they just keep getting bigger, even though they...
Yeah.
How many grizzly bears here in Escambia County, Pensacola, Florida, roam in the woods? None. Right.
Yeah, in Pensacola, sure. How many alligators, Kent? Probably a lot more. Taking a drink for grizzlies that, by the way, don't like to inhabit swamps are rare in this swampy area. Therefore, people kill big animals and they never persist after people get there. Okay, Kent. Like, come on, man. How many alligators?
How many were there 500 years ago, you think?
None, Kent. None. Because you live in a swamp.
Probably lots of them.
Why?
I'm taking a drink.
But why? I know why you're taking a drink. Why is he saying that?
I don't know why he's saying it. I don't know. Let's check. Let's check. Let's just go to brown bear, just to be nice. Range of Ursus. Is Ursus the brown bear? Yeah, it is. Okay. Okay. Let's see. It's even in places where it hasn't been largely displaced, in places like Europe and Turkey, it doesn't really spend a whole lot of time hanging out in like swamps. Like they're basically unknown in India, except in the far northern regions. Even in places like Turkey, they hang out in the highlands. They're not coming down into the swamps. Let's see if there's a historical range map that I can find. I'm glad that Ursus is in fact the brown bear. I remembered that one.
Good job.
Okay, so let's see. Ursus americanus. Well, that's not Ursus.
What about Ursus Florida?
Yeah. All right. Ursus arctos does not have obviously Ursus arctos polar bear. I'm trying to find any range map that includes all of Florida. Nope, that's black bears. That includes Florida though. Let's see. Yeah, no, I can't find anything indicating that grizzlies, which by the way is a specific subspecies of Ursus, right? I'm being nice by just saying brown bears broadly. Yeah, there's nothing saying that brown bears ever lived in Florida. So Kent just picked an animal that, as far as I can tell, never lived there. That's always fun.
Picked a different animal.
Yeah, he could have picked the black bear, but the problem would be that how many black bears are there wandering around where he is? A few, yeah, there's some. They're there. Doesn't make his point. He has to point to an animal that was never there in the first place and say, well, humans must have kicked him out. Scoop23 for $5 says, correction, all dinos are big monsters until the X need them to fit on the ark. Yeah, that's a good point. My Unfinished Journey for $5 says, AIG are a quiescent quorum of quivering quake snakes. That's a new one. I'll take a drink for that. So yeah, I can't find anything. Now, granted, this is just a preliminary search, but I can't find anything indicating that Ursus ever lived in Florida, even before humans got to North America, or more specifically, before humans with guns got there. Because let's face it, the guns are a big factor. Which, by the way, these ancient people wouldn't have had. Like, you'll notice that like the Native Americans didn't manage to exterminate wolves like European settlers did. Mostly because they didn't have as efficient weapons.
Yeah.
Same thing with like mountain lions or cougars or panthers or whatever you'd like to call them. It took guns to get them out of their range in like the eastern areas of North America. People with bows and javelins and atlatls didn't do it.
Well, what happened?
Nothing, Kent, because there were never grizzlies in Florida. Literally nothing.
The more people move into an area, the more the big ferocious animals just aren't welcome.
That's right. That's why alligators are completely unknown in Florida. Oh my god. I have to take another drink. This is too much. There's no big vicious animals in Florida, guys. Okay, sure. Wait, Ursus arctos is the brown bear? Hold on.
Uh-oh.
It is. Which one is Ursus then?
It's not a thing.
Just not a thing? Oh, wait, why am I now getting Ursinus as a brown bear? What's going on with brown bears? Why are brown bears weird? Oh, Ursinus is the black bear. Type in Arctos, see what happens. Ursus arctos. Okay. Still not seeing anything in Florida. Let's see. Nope. Nope. How come when I typed in Ursus, it came up with brown bear? That's lame. Oh well.
Did you use Google or did you use Bing?
I used Google.
You did it right.
Yeah. Hey, look. I don't know all the things. Generally speaking, I get at least one thing wrong in each of these streams. As a general rule. Usually after I come to these streams, someone in the comments has corrected me on something, and then I double check, and yep, I was wrong. Because, I mean, look, I'm drinking, right? So take what I say with a little grain of salt. Double check me. So, yeah. Black bear is Ursus americanus. But I'm also seeing it listed as Ursus ursinus, which is weird. I think there might have been some, like, shenanigans going on with binomials and bears. But what do I know? I'm not also an ursologist.
Bearologist.
Okay, bearologist.
They're going to be driven off, or they're going to be killed off.
Yeah.
If it came on the evening news tonight that there were 5 grizzly bears roaming around Pensacola, Florida, what would happen by 6 in the morning?
I don't know. They probably would have escaped from a zoo because that's the only way grizzly bears are going to be in Florida with or without humans. So my guess is that animal control would be looking for them to return them to the zoo if possible and kill them if not. And that they would be telling people, hey, don't just go grab your rifles.
Every redneck in the country would be out there with his rifle trying to shoot one, right?
TikTok says maybe the bears he means are on Grindr. You know what? With that definition, I'll bet there are plenty of grizzlies in Pensacola.
And whoever could shoot the biggest one would have his picture in the paper the next morning, holding it up by the tail. You know, I shot the grizzly bear and saved the village.
Oh my gosh, he had a drawing done.
If that's the biggest grizzly bear, first of all, I don't think you're dealing with grizzlies. Because that's like sun bear sized. Second, I'm pretty sure it's illegal to just shoot bears. Pretty sure that's not open season on bears in the United States, because generally speaking, it's only open season on invasive animals like boars and hogs. Which, by the way, not legal advice, but as far as I know, yeah, there are no rules or kill limits on boars and hogs in the United States because they're an invasive species. So, like, if you want to shoot like an entire herd of hogs from a helicopter, like a high power rifle, that's allowed as far as I know. Again, not a lawyer. Don't take my advice on this. Jake Nelson says for $10, using my yearly bonus to F with Dapper, he loves tunicates. The lie is a damn dirty lie. Ugh, get your stinking tunicates off me, you damn dirty Nelson. There you go. Movie reference.
Right? Now, nothing has changed. Okay? People are still the same. They were looking to kill these dragons for all these reasons, because they were a menace, to be a hero. If you go deer hunting at all? I ask the deer hunters, you know, those poor guys go out and try to shoot Bambi's daddy all the time. I say, if you're up in your tree stand and 5 bucks come running through the woods.
Apparently some states allow counties to set bounties on invasive hogs, which is like open season plus some.
Yeah.
Man, I kind of wish I lived in one of those counties. I wouldn't mind hunting a few hogs, getting a bounty, and then also getting a pile of hog meat. You know, I'll bet boar is pretty good. Although they're not technically hogs, but you know.
But
you only have time.
Sorry, they're not technically boars. Hogs aren't technically boars, because boar is like the wild version, and hogs are feral, not wild, because they have been domesticated. And they are now living in the wild as wild animals, but with a history of domestication, which is what feral means. I think. Again, not an expert.
Double check in the comments.
You get off one shot. Which one are you going to shoot at? The largest one, the biggest one. Okay. Well, if you have this same mentality back 4,000 years ago, and there's dragons out there to hunt,
which there weren't, but okay.
Which one are you going to go for? The biggest one. Actually, they find now with satellite images, it's pretty interesting. I need to get a slide of this. There are, you know what a keyhole looks like? The old-fashioned keyhole, it's round on top and then 2 V's coming down like this. The old-fashioned skeleton key would go in a keyhole.
Yes, Kent, we've all seen cartoon keyholes.
I've never heard of a key in a keyhole before. This is all new to me.
Right.
Round circle with a triangle at the bottom.
Wait, a round circle, not a square circle? Okay.
Oh, man, I hate it when you get those round circles. Guys, we're going to actually take a quick break after I read this super chat. So Goopdo3 for $5 says, $5 come running through the chat. Thank you very much, Goopdo3. I appreciate that. Guys, hang in with us. I'm going to grab myself a beer, because I actually took out 3 cans of beer, not knowing how fast I would go through these. So I'm going to bring out 1 more can of beer, I think. That should probably do me for the next hour, because I'll have 2.5 or so cans. And then we will be back. But in the meantime, I want you to enjoy the musical stylings of one Bent Hovind, my co-host. So I'll see you when we get back. And we are back from the break. So first I want to say Isaac Treister, I hope I'm pronouncing correctly, says for $10, first time catching one of these live, sending some support for all the great content. Thank you very much, Isaac. I really appreciate that. And hey, that is Isaac's first ever super chat. So that's pretty awesome. Thank you very much. I am happy to be the one that you felt worthy of receiving your first super chat. Also, BioAlley, who's been a member for 4 months and is at the Amniote level, says, "Ooh, I found a new button. Now I can do this. AIG is satchel of pelagic tunicates." We'll take a drink for that.
Yes, they are.
All right, before we go in, there's a couple things I just want to go over real quick. One is to say, hey, guys, if you're enjoying this content and you're interested in doing and supporting me regularly, there are a couple great options. One, of course, is the memberships, which you've been seeing people with memberships, milestones, membership, emojis, all that stuff. That is a great option. Helps me out a whole bunch. Also, I do have a Patreon. Now, you get basically the same benefits on both, except for what, YouTube exclusive stuff. Also, we just got 10 Dapper Dino memberships, so we're going to be drinking for that in just a second. Now, Patreon also does have a discount if you decide to go annual instead of monthly. But if those aren't your thing, if you don't want to do a monthly or an annual thing, you still want to help out, you want to do it monetarily. There's a merch store listed in the description, which is Teespring. There's also, I have an Amazon wish list, which, granted, a lot of it is just recreational stuff for me, but that's a big part of me not burning out, because I feel very lucky to have not really burned out in the last, 3 years of doing this, just nonstop.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that helps a lot. There's also some channel stuff, one of my monitors seems to be on the way out, and there's another monitor on there. There's a backup keyboard for when I inevitably spill too much beer on this keyboard. So, stuff like that. And if none of that's right for you, if you don't want to or you just can't afford it, please like these videos, subscribe, turn on notifications, send them to your friends, share them around. All right, so next, let us take a look at Silent Tetraprod, who gifted 10 Dapper Dinosaur memberships, which went to Olivia Kaufman, Capital H, Valkyrie Vision, Laserfan, Telku. I'm going to say this wrong. I'm just going to say Topsa. I don't actually know. I'm very sorry. Player Review, Eric311, Serge Heichko, Clifford Reynolds, and Crabman were all gifted memberships. So here comes 10 drinks of Bud Light, which might mean I actually do have to get another can of Bud Light. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Take a quick breather. Okay, here we go. 6, 7. Okay. 8. Oh, I forgot to hit 1 for 7. 9. Oh, and 10.
Easy with water.
Okay. That was quite a bit. Okay, let's read some more super chats that came in. DM Wing for $5 says, wait, what does this button do? It sends a super chat, my friend. Skeletor over 9,000, who's been a member for 5 months and is at the Amnio level, says, AIG is the forest of upside down T's someone built outside my Minecraft house. Amazing. Was the someone you? It's okay if it is, by the way. Carrie Bronson for $5 says, per the only one of my trans friends that actually likes beer, shit, Bud/Anheuser has some off-brand hoity stuff that tastes good. Do they? Oh, I should have got that. Although, to be fair, they only hired Dylan Mulvaney to do an ad for Bud Light. And also, I had never heard of her before, yesterday. The only reason I even know this person exists is because people got angry at Bud Light for featuring her in an ad. It's kind of weird. Savage Cobra Kinda Official says, AIG is a sack of Ray Comfort's best argument. Ooh. Take a drink for that.
Oh,
My favorite of Ray Comfort's arguments is actually when he says, now, if a new species evolves, how does it mate if a male and a female didn't both evolve at the same time? Because he fundamentally does not understand how evolution is supposed to work.
I used to ask that question when I was 10.
Right, when you also fundamentally did not understand how evolution works.
In my YEC school.
Yeah. I'm sure for a 10-year-old that seems like a great argument.
It was, and that's the problem, is I never got a good answer.
Well, I mean...
And if you're never going to get a good answer, you're just going to stay ignorant for years and years. Until some guy named Dapper Dinosaur is like, hey, let me teach you about this evolution.
Yeah, at 7 a.m. on a work day or something, after you've been up all night.
10 p.m. until 8 a.m.
Oh, okay.
Is what.
Sorry
on
about
a
that.
Discord call or an Xbox Live call or whatever it was.
All right, DM Wing for $5 says, what's a super chat? Oh, that's where you pay a little bit of money. I read the thing you say, and then most of that money goes to me. But not all of it. Some of it goes to YouTube. Which, to be fair, I'm okay with. It costs money for them to run this website, so they should get some of the money.
Yeah.
However, I do get more of it with Patreon subscriptions than I do with membership.
Intent.
So there's that.
They've noticed all over Europe and America, it appears to be thousands of years old, where somebody had built a giant keyhole shape like a funnel that you could chase a bunch of animals. They'd hit this funnel and they'd end up in this circle.
I've never heard of this, but even if it's the case, what stops that from being for, like, mammoths, which we know humans interacted with in both Europe and North America? Or just deer? Why is that not an option? I don't know.
A corral. You chase them into this keyhole, bottom part of the keyhole, and you end up going in a circle. Only these things are 2 miles long. These keyholes, you can't even see them tear open a satellite.
Jake Nelson for $5 says, Beethoven, no relation. We should talk about your mix. Your music is awesome, but your mix is off. Uh-oh. Now, to be fair, the mix I used for the beginning of this was not, like, the final mix of the song. The mix I used...
that was a demo. That was a demo of the demo.
Yeah, so, I mean, his mixing is better than just that. I do want to...
My mixing is amateurish mixing, and they are demos that I'm making.
Okay.
So there's that, but we can talk.
Yeah. And also, I believe we're like, hold on, $12 away from. Oh wait, yeah. So sorry, still $12 away from the next feather video. Make me do the next video as a feather video. Also, Margaret Zelensky for $5 says, I didn't know YouTube would take my first time so public. There we go. Which is the first super chat from Margaret Zelensky. I'm sorry I botched it so badly. Look, it turns out I'm only kind of literate, apparently. Also, I've had a whole bunch of Bud Light, which I think is messing with my brain.
A little bit.
Yeah. Look, I'm not used to drinking this stuff, right? It's like when what is it? Lucille Bluth got like all that gas from having pool food because she wasn't used to curly fries. It's like that, but my brain instead of my GI tract. Yeah, I like Arrested Development. Sorry about that.
It's a good show.
It is a good show.
You know, and you see they're picking these things out. A lot of research been done on this topic by William Corliss at the Sourcebook Project, it's called. Fascinating stuff he has. Shows some of the pictures and drawings of these things. The theory is...
Fade to Gray, who's been a member for 10 months, that's quite a while, says, look what I can do. It sends an AIG, a bag of dicks, and a Godzilla emoji, and we will take a drink for it. Thank you very much. Bitcore says, Dapper Dinosaur, you're pretty literate for a dinosaur. Okay. Thank you, that is true.
That people were using these to chase, you know, when they want to civilize an area, to take over a new area for, you know, build your city, they go in there and they chase all the dragons or whatever into this area.
That is a lot of supposition based on the, so far, as far as I can tell, unconfirmed idea that there are keyhole-shaped corrals that exist in North America and Europe. That... Okay, not only were these definitely used for hunting, they were definitely used for hunting dinosaurs, and they were used to clear the dinosaurs out before building a city. Oh, and yes, as Steve Renault says, rip Jessica Walter. Yeah, look, most celebrity deaths I don't care a whole lot about. That was one that I was pretty sad about, because Jessica Walters was hilarious, she was charismatic, she could play mean like no one else. My goodness, when she decided to play a mean character... Like, that fire just emanated off the screen right at you. And I was looking forward to more work from her. So, yes, rest in peace, Jessica Walter. Or is it Walters? It's Walter. I don't know.
Torches or, you know, something that makes noise or flames or something. And they end up trapped in here, and then you slaughter them. Because you surround them. You pen them in. Now they're easier to hunt.
Okay.
Like shooting fish in a barrel. So, I think after the flood...
Who shoots fish in barrels, by the way? That's a weirdly weird thing to do. They're already in the barrel. Just drain the barrel.
I've never done that.
Yeah.
People are killing these dragons. And there are literally thousands of legends of people killing dragons. If you want to read some amazing...
Sorry, say that again?
Oh, I said no dragons. Literally 0 dragons.
Yes, literally 0.
Stories. I'd recommend you read, like, for instance, the Gilgamesh epic.
Also, Andrew Metheus is sending a first super chat for $5 saying, lol, balloons and one go brrr. It's true, they do. Thank you very much.
About Gilgamesh, who slew a dragon. We have a book that we offer here called The Great Dinosaur Mystery by Paul Taylor. Let's see, we're in our office now. The book is here someplace, but great book talking about dragons all through history.
Okay, so it's been a while since I've read Gilgamesh, although I have read it in the original Klingon, so there is that. I actually have a copy of it in Klingon.
Of course you do.
I do, yeah. But I remember slaying the Bull of Heaven, which doesn't sound like a dragon because it's a bull, right? Like, as in an intact male boss Tauros, a bull, you know. I remember slaying Humbaba, who was a giant that lived in the forest, but like a giant like person, right? Like he's described as being like a human but really big, you know, like a giant. I don't remember a dragon. Now again, it's been a really long time, so if anyone would like to give me a citation for where Gilgamesh fought a dragon and killed a dragon, please let me know. Interestingly, you could say Daniel fought a dragon, like the Daniel from the Bible, but then you would have to go into the parts of the Bible that Kent doesn't think are part of the Bible. Also, Scriptic Mystic for $5 says, finally caught up from the past with a Godzilla emoji, and it's also Scriptic Mystic's first super chat. So thank you very much, and here's a drink for the Godzilla emoji. My goodness, we're getting first-time super chats all over the place today. I really like it. Thank you very much, everybody. It's very, very generous. Okay, here we go.
There's a Chinese legend. You were in China for a while, Jan? Chinese legend says a famous man named Yu, after the Great Flood, Yu surveyed the land of China and divided it into sections. He built channels to drain the water off into the sea and make the land livable again. Many snakes and dragons were driven from the marshlands.
Okay, some legend from China about a flood because, okay, guess what? China started in the Yangtze River Valley. It's like Han Chinese civilization. Yeah, started in the Yangtze River Valley, which it floods, interestingly enough. Yeah, so would they have a flood legend? Yeah, probably. It's not evidence, Kent.
You're reading this Chinese story, and it's, you know, we got to build the channels to get rid of the water. You know, it's all swampy. We got to, you know, drain the land so we can build our cities. By the way, we had to drive out the dragons. And, you know, just like it's normal. Everybody has to do that, you know. Nobody thought anything about it. This is from Wycliffe Bible Insight.
Yeah, Vagary points out Chinese dragons look nothing like any dinosaur and are chimeric. They are not evident of extant dinosaurs. Yeah, that's a very good point. Chinese dragons, it's hard to think of anything that looks less like a real dinosaur than a Chinese dragon. Or just an East Asian dragon generally, right? Also, Dr. Tapioca Weasel just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships, which, by the way, takes us over the limit for a Dapper Dino Feather video, and I also believe over the limit for the tutu.
Or tutus, yeah.
So we're getting another tutu. And also, these memberships went to Borg Emporia, Big Fang Flying Wang, Stacy C. Oh, and one chat got away from me. Our Dying Sun. I think that is it. So here are 5 drinks. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I don't know what it is about Bud Light, but it makes me want to burp a whole lot more than most of the beers I drink. I really don't know. Maybe it's the can, because I got cans instead of bottles, and I'm used to bottles. Maybe that's
Are you drinking it out of the can, or are you pouring it into a glass?
I'm drinking it out of the can. Oh, I don't know. Who knows? It's a mystery.
Encyclopedia. This is the god Marduk. Now, the Babylonians had all sorts of gods. One of their gods was Marduk.
If he says that that dog-eared thing is a dinosaur, I'm gonna drink. I was gonna come up with some kind of intensifier there, but I couldn't think of one that was accurate. So I'm gonna drink if he says that that's a dog. That's a prediction.
I feel like I'm looking at a deck of cards.
Yeah, you know what? I'll bet ancient Babylonian-themed deck of cards would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I bet they would.
Here's Marduk shown pictured sitting on top of a fire-breathing dragon.
Where?
Okay, first of all, that's probably Tiamat, which is a dragon-like entity. But here's the problem with identifying Tiamat, the goddess, the personification as a goddess of the watery, or of the waters of chaos, right? That's obviously not a dinosaur. Also, I don't see how it's breathing fire and that's not a tongue. But maybe it is. I don't actually know enough about Babylonian mythology to know if Tiamat breathed fire. But it has dog ears. You know what reptiles don't have, Bent?
Dog ears.
Yeah.
They don't have dog ears. They have
They
reptile
don't.
ears.
You've seen plenty of lizards in your time. Did any of them have big sticky uppy ears like a dog?
No.
No. You've seen
It
birds.
would look ridiculous.
Did any of them have big floppy ears or sticky uppy ears? No.
No.
What about snakes, alligators, crocodiles? Any of them? Turtles?
No.
No?
No.
Have you seen a tuatara?
I like turtles. Does that count?
Turtles are pretty great. Yeah, so I'm taking a drink for successful prediction for this scaly dog apparently being an accurate representation of a dinosaur. Which dinosaur, Kent? Just tell me which. Goodness. Alright, here we go. Oh, and in case anyone asks, yes, Tiamat from Dungeons & Dragons is indeed named for Tiamat from Mesopotamian mythology.
Notice the flame coming out of his mouth. Fire-breathing dragon. Now, there's lots of legends.
Actually, I didn't notice the flame coming out of his mouth.
Of
I
all
noticed-
the time, go on.
I was just saying, I know something you said was a flame, but it looked like a tongue to me.
Of all the times I've seen dragons breathing fire, like artistically, it's never been a tiny, tiny little flame that could be mistaken for a tongue.
Yeah, it's always got like multiple
Ever.
little points and it's coming out all fancy and whatnot.
It's usually it's always obvious what's happening. Big fire, big flame.
Robert
That's
Madewell
what I was
says,
seeing.
maybe those are horns. Well, that still doesn't match the anatomy of any dinosaur that has ever existed to my knowledge. So, like, maybe they are, but, like, that doesn't help much.
About dragons, but there are also an awful lot of legends about fire-breathing dragons. So
Yeah, it's almost like these legends aren't actually based on real biological entities. Who'd have thunk?
where would this fit in? In the book of Isaiah, it talks about a fiery flying serpent. In the book of Job, it talks about...
By the way, we actually have inscriptions of this Uraeus, the flying fiery serpent, from the area that the biblical texts are written in. And it's a four-winged cobra. Now, Bent, I know that you're not an expert on dinosaurs, but have
No,
you
I am
ever
not.
seen a skeleton of a dinosaur or a reconstruction of a dinosaur that you would describe as looking like a cobra with 4 bird wings?
No.
No. Okay. Oh, DM Wing for $5 says turtles are the best tetrapod, which, okay, look, I love turtles, and I'm not going to say that you're wrong. I'm just going to say I don't know if I can go quite that far. So, like, you know.
They're up there.
Oh, yeah. All right, here we go.
In Job chapter 41, it's got an entire chapter about an animal called Leviathan.
Yes, it does. Which lives in the ocean and breathes, well, fire. But, how many non-avian dinosaurs were ocean-going? Oh, right, none that we know of. So, you're gonna say it's a dinosaur. Again, which one, Kent? That's one of the things about this, right? It's great to say, oh, this statue of or carving, or relief, or whatever, or painting of a dragon is actually a dinosaur. That's what that is. Okay. How do you know? Which dinosaur is it? They never say. They'll never be like, oh, okay, not never. I'm going to talk about something in a second. They almost never say, oh, this is a Triceratops, or this is a Brontosaurus, right? They'll just say, oh, it's just a dinosaur, by which they just mean it's a big scaly thing. Mr. Freya, who's been a member for 5 months and is at the Amniote level, says AIG is a step below Discovery Institute with regards to employing intellectually honest employees. Yeah, they really are. And also sends a Godzilla emoji, a Murphy emoji, an AIG is a bag of dicks emoji, and unfortunately, a pelagic tunicate emoji.
Everyone's favorite.
It's almost enough to make me not want to drink for Godzilla, but I will anyway. Everyone's sending all these disgusting pelagic tunicates. Okay.
And it says, out of his mouth go burning lamps and sparks of fire leap out. You might want to watch our videotape, the green one over there with the L on it, about Leviathan, the fire-breathing dragon. There really
Okay, I'm probably not going to.
was a fire-breathing dragon.
Wait, I say that like that isn't the entire point of this long-running show that we watch basically everything Kent has done. So I take that back. I probably will watch it at some point. Sorry, Kent. I don't know why I said that.
In Job 41, it says this about this Leviathan, out of his nostrils goeth smoke. I've seen deacons do that at Southern Baptist churches between Sunday school and church.
That was a joke that didn't land. That's the first one. We're taking a drink for it. Also, before he said at Southern Baptist Church, the only thing I could think of was like an Eastern Christian deacon with a censer, the thurifer, just like wafting all that incense around, because that is a lot of smoke coming from a deacon. In case anyone doesn't know, unless there is no deacon, the deacon is typically the one who does most of the thurifer action. You know, if you're in a church that uses incense, which, by the way, I like incense. Churches, use more incense. It smells nice. Just do it. Who cares? Just use more incense. It's nice. I especially like, because church incense tends to be the indirect burn. So, like, there's actually, like, some, like, charcoal at the bottom, and then the incense is poured on top of that, and the charcoal burns. And so, because the charcoal burning isn't directly what's giving off the smoke, it has less of that acrid odor that you get with direct burning incense, like you get at, like, the incense shop as a stick. I prefer the indirect burn incense. I have no idea why I'm telling you guys so much about my incense preferences. Let's keep going.
Because of the nostrils go with smoke.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But like,
That's why.
Yeah, indirect incense is great. Also, more churches use it. I'd be more likely to visit more churches if they had more incense.
It says, out of a seething pot or cauldron, his breath kindleth coals, and a flame goeth out of his mouth. The Bible certainly teaches there was a fire-breathing dragon.
I tend to agree, Kent. I do think the Bible is probably teaching that, so I'll take a drink. Or at least that section is assuming that it's true. Also, Olivia Williams for $6.99 Beaver Bucks says, no, Dapper, please don't ask that. It gives me terrible headaches. Okay. Okay, look. I will give caveats for congregations that have people with significant health problems that are affected by incense. There you go.
There's certainly a lot of history about fire-breathing dragons. It is chemically possible to do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of legends about fire-breathing dragons, but that's not evidence. What would be evidence would be like... Yeah. What would be evidence would be like, I don't know, physical remains. That'd be nice, right? Imagine if he found a recent dinosaur skeleton. And by recent, I mean just from the historical period. What if you found a person who was buried with the head of the T-Rex they killed in battle?
I want Kent to know, I want him to answer a question, like, let's say he found a skeleton. How would he tell if it's a dragon? Him personally, how would he decide?
Well, he doesn't know.
I bet he doesn't know.
No, he doesn't. He would have to do some research on that. Oh, doggy. Dog cam. There's a doggy on camera. Aw, look at her.
Hey, doggy.
So cute.
Good start. Oh, now she's running.
She doesn't even know.
And we've got an animal today called bombardier beetle that does a similar thing. It sprays out 2 chemicals and burns his enemies. They're here in Florida. They call them the blister bug.
Okay, but it's not fire, Kent.
Yeah, that's not the same thing as breathing fire, although it is interesting.
It's boiling hot, and yeah, it can cause burns, but it's not breathing fire. I'm just going to take a drink for... We have bugs that do the same thing. They breathe fire, except no, they definitely don't.
You might be thinking of a match.
Of a what?
Or a lighter.
Oh, right. Sorry, you cut out a little bit there.
Oh, sorry. I said you might be thinking of a match or a lighter.
Match, okay. A Crypto 457, yeah, Kent does not understand how combustion works. You're absolutely right.
The bombardier beetle. We cover all that on video about Leviathan. Anyway, if you get a Catholic Bible,
okay.
The Catholic Bible has 7 extra books, and a few of the books have extra chapters. For instance, the book of Daniel.
You know what? We'll take a drink. That is true. I was about to talk about Bel and the Dragon from the longer version of Daniel, which comes from the Septuagint, which has a dragon in it. And honestly, earlier I thought he wouldn't talk about Bel and the Dragon, which is part of the longer ending of Daniel. So I'm now surprised he is. Yeah, I did. I mentioned it, but I'm surprised he's talking about it.
In our Bible has 12 chapters. in the book of Daniel in the Catholic Bible. It has 14 chapters. One is about Susan.
By the way, it's not just the Catholics. Eastern churches tend to use the same Old Testament canon, which is basically the Septuagint, as the Catholic Church. So they also tend to have the longer version of Daniel, as well as like other books like Judith and Tobit and the Wisdom of Solomon and whatnot. Maccabees. Which, by the way, the Maccabees books are actually pretty good reads. Go read Maccabees. It's good stuff. It's a compelling story about people trying to throw off an oppressive and somewhat invasive regime to restore self-rule to their country. I mean, it doesn't go super well for a lot of them for a lot of the time, and then when they finally win, they then just invite the Romans in, which might have been a bad idea, guys. But anyway, it's still a really good story. Or series of stories.
Susanna, and chapter 13 is, and then chapter 14 is about the dragon. This chapter is known as Bel and the Dragon.
Too Young to Feel This Old for $5 says, are we not going to comment on the fact that Kent just said that it's chemically possible to have a fire-breathing reptile? So I actually don't necessarily disagree. I do think that it's probably possible in like physically possible to have an animal that stores a chemical that combusts easily, even on contact with fire, and then have it not explode in them, but actually catch on fire as they breathe out. Now, I base this on the fact that there have been multiple people who've looked into biochemistry and come up with fanciful ways to have dragons be real. And I actually have not researched it myself enough. But, of course, one of the problems is that being physically possible doesn't mean it's a thing that happened. But then again, I would be happy to find out that that is in fact incorrect and it is physically impossible. I just don't know that it's the case. Oh no, the doggy noises.
Fascinating reading. Okay, I don't think it should be part of Scripture, but here's where the story goes. Catholic.
And his reasoning is just...
He doesn't have any...
Exactly.
It's not in the King James Version of the Bible.
Yes, it is, actually.
Not in his King James Version of the Bible.
Good point. In his abridged version of the King James Version, which is what he's actually reading, it's not in there. But in the real version of the King James Version, the version that was actually promulgated by King James in 1611, it is in there.
Bible, Daniel 14:22. And there was a great dragon in the place, and the Babylonians worshipped him. And the king said to Daniel, Behold, thou canst not say now that this is not a living God. Adore him, therefore. And Daniel said, I adore the Lord my God, for he is the living God, but that is no living God. But give me leave, O king. That's an old English phrase that means you give me permission.
I like how he has Catholic Bible at the bottom. Like, as if that it's Daniel 14 wasn't enough of an indication.
I will kill this dragon without sword or club. And the king said, I give thee leave. In other words, I'd like to see how you're going to do this. How would you kill this dragon without a sword or a club? Then
hair and fat, which I don't know
And
how
Daniel
it works,
died.
but no.
Daniel took pitch and fat and hair and boiled them together and made lumps and put them into the dragon's mouth, and the dragon burst asunder.
Which, by the way, I have no idea why that's supposed to work.
Very strange story.
Yeah.
Here's the Hovind translation of what's going on.
Oh, good.
The Bible tells us in the book of Daniel chapter 1 that Daniel was one of those who was skillful in all wisdom and cunning in knowledge and understanding science. Well, I would assume that Daniel probably knew that nearly all animals like things that taste salty. You put a salt block out in the woods and the deer come up, the cows come up, everything comes to lick the salt.
That's how one of my uncles gets a lot of his meat. By having a salt lick out, and then every once in a while he shoots a deer. I mean, he lives in rural Maine, so in a literal log cabin, by the way. So, you know.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Daniel took pitch and fat and hair. Well, pitch is sticky, made from tree sap. You take
Or petroleum, but we'll probably go with the tree sap.
pine tree sap and boil it down and make pitch. There were whole industries used to make pitch just to cover the ships back 200 years ago, before they discovered oil. First really commercial oil well was in Pennsylvania, Becky, in
I'm actually impressed that he knows that today what we call pitch mostly comes from petroleum. I'm going to take a drink for it because I would not have called that. So, good job, Kent. I'm legitimately impressed.
1828, I believe. So before that time, they still had to make their ships waterproof, and they would use pitch, where they boil down the sap of these trees. Daniel took pitch, which is sticky, and fat, which tastes salty, and hair.
No, fat does not taste salty. Take a
All
drink.
tastes salty.
You ever had some oil just ate without salt?
It doesn't taste like salt.
No, it doesn't. No, many fatty things that we eat taste salty because salt has been added, right? Like when you deep fry some French fries, what do you put on them afterwards?
Salt.
Salt, right.
Yeah.
Or let's say you have some fried chicken full of fat and salt that's in the batter, right? Yeah. So the association between fat and salt is an artificial one that humans have created because humans like both salt and fat. Fat on its own does not taste salty.
Which won't digest. You ever see a cat or a dog cough up when they get a hairball? You know, and cough up this hairball. Hair won't digest.
Depends on how strong your stomach acid is there, Kent. There are animals that can dissolve hair. In fact, I don't know for certain, but I think crocodiles are among them. Which, there's a fair chance that what this is actually just a crocodile. If it's a real story that happened at all. Which, there's a fair chance it's not, since the shorter version of Daniel, which is probably the older version, is almost certainly post-exilic. In fact, it's probably during the period of the Maccabean revolt that it was written. And then the Septuagint edition of the extra chapters are probably even later than that. So we're probably looking at like maybe 1st century BC, which means that the chances of this having an actual historical antecedent are basically zero. But even if it did, I mean, why not just make it a crocodile? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Oh, and snakes apparently can also digest hair. So yeah, hair is not just indigestible overall. It's indigestible for many animals. That's why like owls cough up owl pellets full of hair and bone, because they can't digest hair or bone.
So Daniel took these three, boiled them together, made lumps, gave them to the dragon, and the dragon burst asunder. Hovind translation is, Daniel tossed these things in the cage, the dragon ate them up because they tasted good. They wouldn't digest because of the hair. They stuck in his intestinal tract. And this was the ultimate case of dragon constipation, and the dragon burst asunder.
Okay, why does Kent think that this is not part of the Bible, but that it is a real thing that happened?
Good question. Next question.
Yeah, I'm just going to take a drink for Kent's like, oh, this story that's probably written in like the 1st century BC or so. Totally a thing that definitely happened, but no, shouldn't be in the Bible. Okay, Kent, sure. Just such a weird... Yeah, Savage Cobra said, Daniel is generally dated to the Hasmonean. Yeah. Which is why I mentioned the Maccabees, because they were revolting against the Hasmonean dynasty.
Those were the days before Roto-Rooter. And so it blew him up. What a way to go.
At least I remember them doing that. Again, had a whole bunch of Bud Light, apparently.
But it's just an interesting story in the Catholic Bible about dragon. Yeah, they blow up. You feed them too much, they founder, right? Yeah. Saddam Hussein.
Why are we talking about Saddam Hussein?
Did you hear what he said?
Yeah, he said insane.
He said insane.
Goodness. I'm just taking a drink for the whiplash of like, so Bell and the Dragon, and then Saddam Hussein. Oh, okay.
Where he usually goes to Godwin's Law, but not today.
The Maccabees were the Hasmoneans. Right, okay, yep, that's the difference. Sorry, they were fighting against the Seleucids, and they became the Hasmoneans. And then the Hasmoneans invited in the Romans like a bunch of idiots. My bad. Look, there's a lot of moving parts involved in all this, and I've had a fair bit of alcohol. You know, I rarely drink as much as I do on Tuesdays.
I know.
On any other days. Tuesdays, I'm just done by the end of the day. It's... my goodness.
Hussein, Saddam thinks he is Nebuchadnezzar reincarnated.
I would need a citation. I do think it's likely that he was co-opting some of the imagery of Nebuchadnezzar and taking on Nebuchadnezzar as like a role model and talking about him being the return of Nebuchadnezzar in a symbolic sense. but I don't know of anything about him actually thinking he's the literal reincarnation of Nebuchadnezzar. It's sort of like how fascists in Italy took on the trappings of the Roman Empire and thought of themselves as the return of the Roman Empire. But they knew they weren't actually literally the Roman Empire from millennia ago. Not that I'm trying to defend Italian fascism. I'm saying I don't think that they literally thought of themselves as the reincarnations of the Caesars.
The guy has a serious ego problem. He has huge pictures of himself all over the countryside. He has
Imagine being Kent Hovind and saying someone else has an ego problem.
his picture in front of Nebuchadnezzar on their currency. He claims that he is Nebuchadnezzar reincarnated.
I'm going to need a citation on that one. Just putting yourself next to someone on a coin, it does not mean that you're claiming to be that person.
Now his name is Saddam Hussein. Saddam means prince.
Not that I'm aware of. Let's double check, because you know what? My Arabic isn't great.
Mine's even worse.
And yeah, like, okay. Yeah, it's Emir. Oh, Tom Back sent a $20 super chat with no message. Thank you very much. If you do have a message, let me know. So yeah, Emir, which also is basically like commander. So like military commanders also get that. Also, if you've been to the United Arab Emirates, that comes from Emir. So yeah, Saddam does not mean prince. Well, let's see. Let's find out what it does mean, though. What is it? Where does it come from? Arabic Saddam is a title that means one who confronts, one who frequently causes collisions, collider, powerful confronter, popular among Sunni populations. Okay. Yeah. That makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
George Bush always called him Saddam Hussein. You go back and listen to the newsreels, you know, George Bush always called him Saddam Hussein. Oh, this was done very intentionally. It wasn't that George Bush is stupid and didn't know, how to pronounce his name. The word Saddam is the Arabic word that means horse's rear end.
No, I've looked into that one at least before. There's no special Arabic word for horse's ass. And also, Saddam versus Saddam, Arabic doesn't really have an ass sound. That's one of the things, right? It's not in most dialects of Arabic that I'm aware of. It's certainly not in Al-Fusha, which is like modern standard Arabic. And I doubt that George Bush knew enough Iraqi Arabic to come up with a pun in Iraqi Arabic. So, like, no. We're just taking a drink for Kent Hovind is just wrong about Arabic.
It's just making stuff up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To his audience who doesn't know any better.
Yeah, because also, what are the chances that Kent Hovind can say anything even approximating Saddam? Basically zero.
Low.
Yeah.
Probably low.
Yeah. Also, Savage Cobra, kinda official for $5 says George Washington was a bald eagle and a bunch of arrows. They're on the same coin. It's true. They are on the same coin. They must be the same thing. It's the only explanation. Thank you. Oh, goodness.
So George Bush was intentionally calling him horse's rear end.
No, George Bush was just an idiot. That's why his vice president basically ran the war, which is unprecedentedly weird. Also, I had to stand in a hot hangar bay while that vice president gave a speech about nothing. It was really, really miserable.
It was hotter than that. I know,
Yeah.
you're thinking, how hot was it? It was awful. I was there.
It was hotter than you're thinking. It was
It was more humid than you're imagining, and it was more crowded than you're imagining either.
Yeah. And they were very careful to make sure that we didn't say anything nasty to the press, and then one of us did anyway. Not one of me or Bent, but one of the people we worked with was,
Whoops.
Yep. They were not happy with him. But we're also, what are they going to do? He didn't break a rule, technically.
Right.
Saddam Hussein. Interesting bit of trivia. Anyway, we'll take a break here in a second, but Saddam In order to fulfill the image that he is Nebuchadnezzar, he has spent a fortune rebuilding the ancient city of Babylon. Babylon was destroyed about 600 BC by the Medes and the Persians, 586 or whenever it was. The Medes and the Persians came in there, destroyed Babylon, okay, wiped it out, burned the city, etc., etc. Took Daniel captive, and the book of Daniel is interesting because Daniel starts off in Israel. He's taken a slave, made a eunuch, takes him over to Babylon. He lives there for a while. Then they fall, and he goes into Media Persia and becomes, one of their high people there. By that time, he's, an old man.
Wait, hold on.
Like 90 years old.
Didn't Alexander the Great conquer Babylon? Not the Medo-Assyrians? Well, I guess it was conquered by the Achaemenids, too. But did they raise the city? I don't think that's right, that it was that when the Medo-Persian Empire took over, that they destroyed Babylon.
I'm shocked if Kent's getting this story wrong. Shocked.
I mean, that's what's called the fall of Babylon, but was that the actual destruction of the city? Maybe I'm just wrong about that. Look, I don't know a whole lot about Babylonian history. I will be one of the first to admit that. So, I mean, maybe. Okay. Also, yeah, when was Daniel made a eunuch? I don't remember that being a thing, but then again, I haven't read Daniel in a very long time. I don't remember Daniel being made a eunuch. So yeah, I don't know if that's a thing. I don't think it is. If anyone who's more familiar with Daniel, who's read Daniel more, can confirm, because I don't think he was made a eunuch, because, well, the Hebrews didn't like eunuchs much. So I have trouble imagining them writing a story about a eunuch as a national hero.
And he still becomes one of the good guys. And that's when they throw him in the lion's den. He's like 90 years. You don't want to be thrown anywhere when you're 90. You certainly don't want to be thrown into a den of lions. I should say den of lions, not lion's den. Because a lion's den can be the place where they live, but nobody's there. A den of lions means they're there, right? He wasn't thrown into the lion's den. He was thrown into the den of lions, which in the Bible is very clear to spell that out in the King James Version.
Think about that.
That's a weird distinction to make. Yeah.
Who cares? Just call it a lion's den. That's what that means. It means there's lions there.
Yeah. I'm double
Otherwise, it
checking
would
on
just
the
be a
eunuch
den.
thing. Apparently the Bible doesn't indicate that Daniel was made a eunuch. I mean, he could have been, I suppose, but there's no indication that he was. So I'm going to go ahead and say that's a big old maybe, I guess. Just assuming that, the story is close enough to historical that asking whether or not Daniel was really made a eunuch means anything.
So, Saddam decided to rebuild the ancient city. It was destroyed about 600 BC. They've always known where it was. It was just a ruins.
Okay, so Cross-Platform Adventure says, the first chapter says that he and his friends were put under the control of the guy in charge of the eunuchs. But yeah, he might have been then. That would actually indicate that he might have been. Yeah. Not an unreasonable inference. I wouldn't say it's a thing that is definitely part of the story.
The Middle East is full of those ruins, Egypt, about all they can do is point to their glorious past and look at these big, huge buildings we used to have around here.
Yeah, Egypt hasn't done anything since basically the Roman conquest. That's it. That was the last time they really did anything important. I'm taking a drink for how insulting that is to the Egyptians, who did plenty of things after that. They built plenty of really cool churches, more recently mosques. There was a whole big old canal thing, There's more to Egypt than just the ruins. Now, granted, the ruins are really cool. But yeah, there's more to Egypt than just that.
Everything's destroyed now. But it sat desolate, destroyed for quite a while. Saddam decided to rebuild the old city. Well, most of the city walls had been preserved. It's a real sandy, desert area. The wind blew all the sand in and covered them up and preserved them. They're just buried in sand. So they excavated down, found the old walls of the city that were really well preserved. The brick was, and it contained hundreds of pictures of dragons on the sides of the city walls.
That is like the crappiest picture. But anyway, let's take a look about these, because these are the dragons that I believe are preserved on the Ishtar Gate, which I think is now housed in the British Museum, because, Britain likes to steal some stuff. So first we're going to take a drink at these being dinosaurs. So here's the thing about these. One, they very clearly have mammal-like tails. They also have mammal-like paws. And they have snake heads. Literally snake heads. And also horns. That doesn't describe any dinosaur. You can't just point to an animal that is called a dragon and say, see, they saw dinosaurs. Which dinosaur is it, Kent? Which dinosaur had a...
like dinosaur.
Yeah. Which dinosaur had lion paws and a lion tail and a snake head with horns, Kent? Oh, is it none? Is it none dinosaurs? And the bead says, Babylon was abandoned in 1000 CE. Yeah, so it definitely wasn't destroyed by the Medo-Persian Empire. Because I thought the Medo-Persian Empire had its capital in Babylon. And also, like, Alexander the Great was around to conquer it. So, like, the fall of Babylon... So, Kent might be thinking of the fall of Babylon, right? Which did happen in the 6th century BC. But it was not the destruction of the city of Babylon. It was the fall of the Babylonian Empire, the Achaemenid Empire, by Cyrus the Great. Which is still not the Medo-Persian Empire. I don't think it was. Yeah, because the Medo-Persian Empire was what took Daniel captive, wasn't it? Again, my Babylonian history, not amazing. It was the Ishtar Gate in Berlin, not London. Okay, so it was the Germans who stole it this time, not the British. Sorry, British.
Now look at this dragon. This one, they took the bricks apart and reassembled it back in Berlin.
Oh yeah, Berlin. Thanks, Ken. Okay, yeah, look at that. Doesn't... Oh, right, I forgot. It has lion front paws and eagle hind legs.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just taking another drink for, that's totally a dinosaur. Is it, Kent?
It looks very imaginative.
Yes, it does. It almost looks like it's some kind of chimerical monster that doesn't exist.
Almost like humans can create that artistically and not believe that they were real.
Yeah. By the way, people, double check with me about, like, the fall of Babylon and the Achaemenids and the Medo-Persians and whatnot, because I honestly don't know enough about Babylonian history. I really don't. So.
Pronounce the name of that museum. Strange animal. It has scales all over its body. See the scales on its neck and on its tail?
I see the scales on the neck and the torso and the tail, but not the hind or the front legs, which is a little bit weird, Kent.
Yeah.
On the feet, it has, like, claws. Now, and a forked tongue.
I couldn't see a tongue,
like
but maybe.
Well,
yeah, here's another thing. There's no good reason to think dinosaurs had forked tongues, because they're neither monitor lizards nor snakes. They're, in fact, extremely different from either of those. And those are the reptiles that have forked tongues. So, like, no.
That would indicate a reptile.
Yeah, it would indicate a reptile, Ken. Just not one that's a dinosaur. Yeah. As Vishanti points out, big meaty claws? Yeah, those front paws would have had little toe beans. Dinosaur is not really known for their little toe beans.
And a horn on his head.
Yep. You know, not a thing that's a horn, not a thing that's known from too many dinosaurs, especially not a horn from the back of the head. Like you say, oh, what about Styracosaurus? Yeah, but that's a nose horn, not from the back of the head. Did Mosasaurus have forked tongues, asks Smitty. I don't know, because we don't have any preserved mosasaur tongues, but I would say more likely than not, yes.
Over these walls, and they've rebuilt the walls. In other words, they've rebuilt a whole section in a museum in Berlin. They have these pictures of dragons and lions.
Okay.
Apparently, in 600 BC, they really did have a dragon in captivity in Babylon.
Sure they did.
Just based on the longer ending of Daniel. Okay, sure.
That he doesn't believe in.
Right. But it is true, though. He just doesn't believe in it.
It's true, but he doesn't believe in it, but it's true.
Yeah.
Got
it.
In the Catholic Bible chapter about this, may be, based on historical fact that there were dragons still alive.
Yeah, the chapter that was almost certainly written like 600 years after the setting. This is exactly, by the way, why I sent the Jehovah's Witnesses away to go find me evidence that the Book of Daniel is mid-exilic rather than post-exilic. And they still haven't come back, because there is no evidence of that. Daniel is almost...
They're still looking for it.
Yeah. Daniel is almost certainly not mid-exilic. It was not written contemporaneously with the depictions, or with the events depicted. In fact, it was written after the release from Babylon and the start of the construction. So when they were like, oh, how did Daniel know when the construction of the temple would start? I said, well, that would be a great question if I could say for certain that Daniel was a mid-exilic text rather than a post-exilic text. What do you got for that? Haven't been back. The last I heard from the JWs was 2 kids came by to drop off an invitation to the memorial supper, which is happening this week, apparently. Which, no, I'm not going to.
What?
I know, right? I don't want to sit around and watch no one take communion at the one communion service their church has per year. That's all that happens. They pass the bread and wine around in virtually every single place where they have a memorial supper. No one takes a sip or eats any of the bread. And then that's it. That's the base. That's the big thing. Okay. Sounds
Celery.
Yeah, it sounds extremely boring. All right, guys. We're going to start wrapping up here. Bent, do you have anything you want people to know about before we get out of here?
Yeah, I'm going to be on Top Hats Off tomorrow.
Nice.
For Power Rangers. It's going to be so much fun. Stop by and watch.
Yes, that'll be at basically the same time this was.
Basically.
Yeah.
I also have an Amazon wish list with food on it, and I'm really hungry.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's linked in the description right below. So send me food, please. And thank you.
Yeah.
And then there's music I have that I make. Link also in the description.
Right.
Download it, listen to it.
Okay. So on the 6th, what's happening is we're getting the supercut of the 2 guys from ICR who were just saying how cool various animals are and then pretending that that is on its own, for some reason, a problem for evolution, which sort of a baffling stance to take, in my opinion, but hey, they took it, not me. Then on the 8th, I believe I am doing another Dapper Reacts. Then on the 11th, we should be doing most likely another Kent with Bent. Then on the 13th, we will be starting a new series called Sal's Pal. I don't want to give too many spoilers about that series. And then on the 15th, I don't know. I'm not looking ahead that far. So your guess is as good as mine. But with that, guys, I want to say thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Again, make sure you share this video, hit like, send it to people who would like it. But other than that, we're going to get out of here. Now, I do want to say one quick thing, which is to say that these end credits are temporary. I basically made a few mistakes when uploading them to my render farm. Those mistakes have been corrected. However, there will be a name missing from the text of the credits, but I did say that person's name so that they are in the credits. And also, the credits have a few glitches here and there, and so this will hopefully be the only video that uses this iteration of the credits. There will be a new version, hopefully by tomorrow morning, that has these problems fixed. So my apologies. I spent a good chunk of today trying to get all that done, and again, I made some mistakes. But hey, better than nothing. So here come the credits, and I will see all of you guys, I hope, on Thursday.
Bye.
Thanks for watching, but before you go, I just want to say a special thank you to my channel members and my patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above.
Bob Knob, Work in Progress, Benthoven, Tapioca Weasel, Danny5252, Eleron Teller, Furavara, Ian Chen, Landon Knoll, Mabdy Babby, San, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Bead, Scriptic Mystic, Dr. Tapioca Weasel, and Pat L. Dennis.
As you probably know, YouTube is a very volatile platform, and from month to month my income on the channel can swing wildly. But the people you see on screen are directly supporting so that I don't have to worry too much about that, and the channel can keep going as it is, and perhaps even improving. If you'd like to join this team, there are links below to join the channel or in the description to join the Patreon. The Patreon starts as low as $1 a month, and the channel memberships start as low as $1.99 a month. On Patreon, you can even get a discount for pledging annually. If you do decide to pledge, you'll get access to an exclusive Discord server just for channel supporters, as well as early access to all of my pre-recorded videos, often up to 2 months in advance. Higher tiers will unlock even better perks. Now, if an annual or monthly pledge isn't right for you, but you still want to support the channel, there is a merch store down in the description, as well as an Amazon wishlist, just for me. And if financial support isn't something you can or want to do, then if you still want to help out the channel, please just like and share these videos and make sure you comment on them. It really helps the channel out. Thanks again for watching.